Major Mohd Ali Shah, I beg your pardon, joining us on the broadcast. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're talking about General Chauhan and him being the second CDS that India is going to get. Help us understand the challenges that he has before him.
Well, General Anil Chauhan is a very fine general and from the Gurkhas, and incidentally he also had commanded 3 corps in the northeast, which General Bipin Rawat also had commanded. He also was from Gurkhas, and I was ADC to GOC 3 Corps.
Right, so you've got on mute, if you could just unmute yourself.
I think your channel is calling me up. Please tell your channel not to call me up, because I'm using my phone on the... it'll get this...
Right, sir, go ahead.
All right. Okay, so the challenges that he would be having ahead would be difficult right now, because the CDS had passed away in the ill-fated aircraft last year, and the seat has been, the vacancy has been, it has not been filled for almost, you can call it a year or 9-10 months. So definitely when you take over an appointment which has been vacant for so long, there would be challenges, firstly. Secondly, now the government is coming up with new rules, with the new policies. So he has to be implementing them, and he has a reputation of getting things done, as Urvashi Khona rightly said earlier. So he has to ensure that they are implemented. So that again, I mean, for example, so we would be abolishing all the colonial past, which is a very, very good thing. But then in the colonial past, also the Chetwood Credo comes. The Chetwood Credo is a credo which we all grew up on, which we all actually gave our lives to, which says the safety, honor, welfare of your country comes first, always, and every time. The honor, welfare, and comfort of the men you command comes next. Your own ease, comfort, and safety comes last, always, and every time. So definitely, I mean, this is something which we actually held very, very close to us, irrespective whether it was the colonial past or it was developed by the Britishers or whoever. But it was something, so he has to implement certain things which would, and a change is not easy. Like for example, you saw the kind of opposition happen during Agniveer. If you ask me personally, I think Agniveer is a very, very good scheme. And I myself was a short service officer I served for 5 years, but Agniveer is like 4 years. So I think it's a very, very good idea. Why not? Why shouldn't they be? So when you are implementing certain things which are new, there's always resistance. So now, and also when you take over a post which hasn't been filled, of course, and then he had retired from the army, there's a cooling off period after you retire from the army until you take over your next post. It can be whether you join the Armed Forces Tribunal, it can be whether you get a governorship, it can be whether you become vice chancellor of a university, it can be anything. So there's a cooling off period. In that cooling off period, you are not associated with any government job at that time. So most certainly there is going to be a challenge ahead of him. But since he has a reputation of getting things done, he has a very clean reputation, and so I'm certain that he will do a very fine job and he will lead the way. Incidentally, interestingly, General Manoj Pandey, who's the current chief of the army staff, he took over from General Chauhan as the Eastern Army commander before he became chief.
Okay.
So he is, senior to General Manoj Pandey in that regard as well.
And Major Shah, also interestingly, he is, CDS is the highest ranking officer that, in the defense services, and General Chauhan was a 3-rank officer who's been brought back from his retirement. Now tell us a little bit about that development. That's an interesting change when it comes to, the selection for the CDS.
Okay. So in the army, there is something like, like for example, I'll give a very, very clear example for everyone to understand. Like they would say that General Manoj Pandey is a 4-star general, and General Chauhan was a 3-star general who retired. Now he is going to be brought back as a 4-star general. And in the order of seniority or status, he would be senior to the chief of army staff. Similarly, there is the army, there's a corps commander, a 3-star general, and then there's an army commander who is also a 3-star general. But an army commander is senior to a corps commander. Like, I'll give you a very clear cut example, so that everyone understands now. When I get commissioned in the army as a young lieutenant, I am about 20 years old or 21 years old. I get commissioned, and in the army, there's a seniority, not of 1 year. Like in school, we have sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth. Here you have 6 months. 6 months, 6 months, 6 months, 6 months like that.
Right.
So you get commissioned as an officer, say for example at 21 years of age. Now the next course to get commissioned will also get commissioned at 21 years of age, but by then this course has proceeded ahead by 6 months further. So and there is seniority by the numbers. So if you and we train together, we are from the same course, you pass out first in order of merit, I pass out last in order of merit, but you are still senior to me because you have gained it by that number. That is the kind of seniority you have in the army. Now, when the CDS, as you mentioned, that he retired as a 3-star general, but he is still actually senior to General Manoj Pandey.
Right. And Major Shah, help us understand the responsibilities of a CDS. Now, when it comes to the chain of command, we've been talking about a unified theatre command as well. How does a CDS then come in, and how does that play out, the entire organizational structure of it?
Very good question by you, and this is the same question which everyone would actually have in their minds. So it gives me an opportunity to clear their doubts as well. See, CDS is a bridge between the government and the defense forces, the Army, Navy, Air Force. That's why CDS would be, he would be the chief of not only of the Indian Army, but of the Indian Air Force, of the Indian Navy as well. Now, like we have the defense secretary, we have the defense minister. So he will play the role of a defense secretary as well. He would play the role of a defense advisor as well. He would be it's a very, very powerful appointment. It is extremely powerful and extremely crucial actually. So when you have a person in uniform as a CDS who has been there, done that, same thing, the army can connect with him in a better way. I'm not saying that you would not be able to connect to a defense secretary, but there's a difference when you have a uniformed man in front of you who has gone through the same institution as you, who has gone through the same posting, same lifestyle, so there's a better connect there. So yes, most certainly the CDS appointment, when he is a bridge between the government and the defense forces, it makes a whole lot of difference in fact.
Right, Major Shah, my last question to you before we let you go. Help us understand now, like you already mentioned, the challenges that are there before Lieutenant General Chauhan, but the value that he's adding now to the post of CDS, of course, filling in the shoes of General Rawat, late General Rawat, the kind of value that Lieutenant General Chauhan will be adding to the post of CDS, if you could just help us understand that.
Right. So when General Anil Chauhan takes over and he fills up the same post which General Bipin Rawat had left behind. In fact, General Bipin Rawat was the first CDS, and the talks of getting over a CDS was going on for a very, very long time. People think that, this post suddenly came in about when General Bipin Rawat came. No, the talks of getting a CDS was on for years before that. It was only implemented and executed at that time when General Bipin Rawat became the chief, and he retired the next day and he took over the CDS. So, and here when there was a cooling off period and Anil Chauhan had retired from the army and then now he comes back as a CDS. See, a lot of people were making presumption that who would be the next CDS. This was, I don't know, a lot of civilian as well. People were betting and people were friendly bets. People were guessing, and there was a lot of speculation around at that time. Somebody from the Air Force or from the Navy or from the Army, then they came about, it would be from the Army or who, and people had various names in their bucket list. They had different names. So
right.
Again, so now when he takes over the post which General Bipin Rawat had left, it's certainly, and General Bipin Rawat was a very, very towering personality. A lot of people would agree with me on that, and then a lot of people I know for a fact, during General Bipin Rawat's lifetime, they wouldn't be in support. But when General Bipin Rawat left us, those people were the ones who were actually mourning genuinely. So, of course, General Bipin Rawat has left a void, and he has large shoes to fill in. General Chauhan, I would say that.
Right. Thank you for joining us, Major Shah, and sharing your thoughts, providing some insight onto this oath-taking ceremony.